Andy Chrisman of For Him has spent 40 plus years in Christian music, and chances are he knows your favorite artist personally. Now he's bringing you their stories.
I'm Andy Chrisman.
In his new podcast, 1 Degree of Andy, he sits down with the voices behind the songs for real, honest, and faith-filled conversations you won't hear anywhere else.
That's a great question.
If you love Christian music, this is your backstage pass.
The 1 Degree of Andy podcast.
Listen now to 1 Degree of Andy wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Alzheimer Speaks Radio. I'm your host, Lori LeBay, and I'm so excited that you're joining us today. We are going to have a fascinating conversation, as usual, as we learn from people all around the world at all ages and stages of life. Stay tuned as we shift our dementia care from crisis to comfort.
Here we go. What you think about, you will bring about.
Well, hi, everyone. Welcome to Alzheimer Speaks. I'm your host, Lori LeBay. And today we are going to be talking about surprising ways that AI can really help people with dementia delay symptoms or rebuild confidence so that they engage. And they do that through telehealth and technology, exercise activities, and reflections. And we will be talking with the co-founder Daniel Kelly with NewDays. And I think this is going to be a really interesting conversation and some really, really cool technology that you can participate in. But before I introduce you to Daniel, I want to give a shout out to Q for Good. They are my webmasters who I absolutely adore. So if you're looking for one, they are reasonable. They are on top of things. They do things in a timely fashion. And boy, they really reduce my stress anyways. And hopefully they can do the same for you. And then I always like to encourage people to visit Alzheimer Speaks and go to our free educational resource tab, as well as visiting DementiaMap.com, which is our sister company. Both have a ton of free resources that you can access. So let's go ahead and meet Daniel. Well, Daniel, I am so excited to have you on the show today. I love hearing about how to improve people's lives living with dementia and those that are caring for them. I think it's critically important. In fact, that's kind of the base on which Alzheimer Speaks was started, was like, where is this stuff? We have to get this pushed out. So I'm going to first ask you to introduce yourself to our audience, if you don't mind.
Sure, yeah. First of all, it's great to be here, Lori. Excited to chat with you. My name is Daniel Kelly. I am a co-founder at a company called NewDays, which is working to help people diagnosed with dementia. We've been doing that for about 2 years now, and yeah, just excited to talk about some of the things we're working on, but more excited to talk about the day-to-day reality of helping someone with dementia, the kind of care partner reality, all the tools and different things that are available to help people to the greatest extent possible.
Well, that'll be right up our alley here. So first, I always ask everyone, have you been personally touched by dementia in your own family or circle of friends? I find it fascinating how many people have been, but yet others step into this path as well.
Yeah, I think that the majority of people I've met that work in this space is because they've had some family member with dementia and they've had a personal experience with it. I think that the disease has such an effect not only on the person with dementia, but the greater family, that it just becomes, once you experience it, it becomes such a large part of your life that it's hard to not have some sort of passion for helping others experience it going forward. And so, yeah, I have part of the reason I'm working in this space is that I have this crazy family history of dementia where my dad is one of 6 children, and so far 5 of them have had the disease. My grandfather had the disease. It's even one of my uncles who, the one sibling that has not been diagnosed yet, my Uncle Tom, his wife, who was his high school sweetheart, had a long battle with Lewy body dementia. My Aunt Kathy got the disease in her mid 50s. My Uncle Bob got the disease towards his late 50s. My dad currently is in the stages of moderate dementia. And so, yeah, we call it, in my family, we call it the Kelly curse. I've grown up with the disease. It's always been part of my life. And yeah, just very passionate about trying to help people, families, providers, anyone to the greatest extent possible.
Yeah, that's a lot in your family. Most people don't know a lot of history regarding their family because over the years things have been called different stuff. Like
Yeah,
when my mom got diagnosed, dementia wasn't even a word we talked about.
no, yeah,
Alzheimer's, barely anybody like what?
yeah,
What's that? You know, and she had symptoms starting in her mid 50s.
yeah,
But was misdiagnosed for 10 years. They kept telling her, it's just menopause. And my mom would go, that ain't my girlfriend's menopause. It's different. We've talked about it. And, she lived 30 years. And then upon her death, we did an autopsy. And Dr. Fry, I don't know if you're familiar with him. He did the nasal spray trials, started that here in Minnesota. I had him kind of review her autopsy with me just to make sure I was on board and reading it correctly. And he literally gasped and then he apologized. And I said, well, don't apologize. And I said, but can I ask why? And he says, Lori, I work in a brain bank. I've never seen a brain this atrophied. You were right all these years. Your mom had dementia, but
oh,
she
wow,
didn't just have Alzheimer's. She had Lewy body and she had Parkinson's.
wow, yeah,
And the later two were never talked about at all. So I think it's really important for families to know, but then to also realize you can live a long life, pretty well
yeah,
with the disease, and that's never really talked about until the last, probably 5 and even 10 years. It started creeping out. It was just always a death sentence, and
yeah, yeah.
and that's mentally hard on the person diagnosed and the family members.
I totally agree, Lori. My Uncle Bob was kind of the same way. His brain was autopsied after he passed away, and he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, I believe. But after the autopsy, they showed that he had signs of Alzheimer's, Lewy body, and vascular dementia. And I think that reality of kind of mixed dementia and the multitude of symptoms that can come from all of those different those types of dementias it's just becoming more prevalent and is more common than we probably think that it is. And yeah, I totally agree that the early stages of dementia, you may be a little bit forgetful, but for the most part, you're still very much the person that you've always been your entire life. And so doing the most to kind of, sure, acknowledge that you're having some cognitive impairment, that's totally fine, but then take advantage of as many resources as are available in order to kind of maximize your time at those early stages where you can still have lots of quality time with your families, friends, loved ones. And those stages of the disease are still very livable. The more that you can maximize your time there, I think it's beneficial.
Yeah, I agree. Well, why don't you tell us about NewDays? What's that all about? What does that offer?
Yeah, so NewDays is a treatment for people with dementia, technically with mild cognitive impairment or dementia. But yeah, since we're talking about dementia a lot, let's focus there. And my favorite analogy for what NewDays is that it's physical therapy for your brain. And I think that's just kind of a simple way to understand the approach. It simplifies what we're doing a little bit, but it's just very accessible. And so I think that, if you were someone that had knee surgery, you may take a medication for the pain, but you would go see a physical therapist. And that physical therapist is a medical professional that is an expert in exercises and activities that are beneficial for your injury. I think the exact same, and NewDays thinks the exact same paradigm should exist, but for your brain. So if you're experiencing cognitive impairments, you should go see a cognitive therapist. And that cognitive therapist is a medical professional that is an expert in exercises and activities and everything else that is beneficial for your brain and helps you maximize your time of independence and helps you maximize those early stages and quality of life. And they can take advantage of many tools that are available to them in order to promote those things to the greatest extent possible. And so NewDays is really, it's two pieces. One is a telehealth company and a technology company. So on the telehealth side, it is meeting with medical professionals. These are neuropsychologists or clinical social workers that have been trained in cognitive interventions. And they work through a program called cognitive rehab. And this is a program that exists today. There are medical professionals that do this today. They are speech pathologists, or they are occupational therapists, or they're neuropsychologists. And this is really a program of, let's set goals to help you maintain your independence and work through skills and strategies and coping mechanisms for dealing with how cognitive impairments impact your life. And so NewDays is one part that it's making those medical professionals more accessible. At the same time, similar to physical therapy, you should go see your cognitive therapist, but there are things that you should be doing on a daily basis that are beneficial for your brain. And so NewDays uses technology here, but we use the latest generation of artificial intelligence, AI. We can talk about some of the ramifications there, but we use it as a tool, as an easy, accessible way to stimulate your mind and challenge your mind, so that you are getting the maximum benefit from this type of therapy and this type of intervention. And we're making those clinicians as efficient at their jobs as they possibly can be. And so NewDays it's two components. It's the telehealth component, it's the technology component, it's physical therapy for your brain. The thing that we think is really interesting about it is that we're just taking a care paradigm that already exists, but we're making it more accessible. And we're getting the dosage required so that people can actually see real benefit in their everyday lives. The nice thing about that is that it's already covered by Medicare. So we are in network with traditional Medicare. And so you could learn about NewDays, learn about the approach, think it's interesting, come sign up with our clinic tomorrow, start working through the program, and it would be covered by Medicare to the extent that Medicare covers sort of treatment. It would already be covered by Medicare.
Well, that's cool. Now, are you a guide certified provider?
Yeah, so we think of ourselves as kind of within the cognitive therapy paradigm. So we are not guide certified, and that guide is designed to be comprehensive care management. Mm-hmm. It provides a care navigator that helps you understand all of the services that are available and also gives you access to respite care. And that is just we think that's fantastic. It's a different paradigm than what we're working on. So we are a paradigm that is designed to work through cognitive interventions, work on cognitive stimulation, social stimulation, work through conversational exercises. And so we would really be like, if you were working with a guide certified provider, then maybe one thing that they would recommend is go work with NewDays because we think it would be beneficial for you. And so we're like one part of that comprehensive care paradigm, but we are not guide certified.
Okay. I love that you talked about social engagement, because I really think that's why my mom lived 30 years. She was socially engaged until about the last 3. Then her mobility was more limited, her speech and everything. And so that changed her dynamic. But through the rest of that time, even though she was living in a community, she was really engaged. And, it was funny because even the nurses would say, how does she know all this stuff? And I go, my mom knew everything all the time of what was going on. I said, she was a great eavesdropper early on. she never really lost that. And even though it was new information, for whatever reason, she could still retain that for a long, long time. It was just incredible. But I do think that social engagement, feeling purposeful, being recognized, and then I think it makes total sense to have therapy for the brain. It's just, people haven't really put that in that perspective before of the whys you're doing it. I know I broke my elbow and I'm like, why does my wrist hurt? It's like in my fingers, and they're like, oh yeah, that controls everything. My elbow never really hurt. It was everything else. And to be able to have access, which is really difficult to do, to get to the right people and get into the clinics. That's the number one thing that I hear from people in my support groups is, we're 9 months out, we're 6 months out before we can even get in. And then typically your issues have changed by the time you get in the door,
Yeah.
which is so sad. So I'm a big supporter of telehealth. I think that's absolutely amazing. Now, you're the co-founder. How did you come to, I mean, I know you had a lot of history.
Yeah.
But again, having a lot of history and wanting to do something and getting it off the ground are two different things. How did that all come together for you?
Caring for someone with dementia is one of the toughest journeys, but you don't have to do it alone. I'm Allison Schreier, and my experience caring for my husband inspired me to create Zinnia, a therapeutic streaming service designed to support people living with dementia and reduce caregiver stress. Zinnia offers research-backed videos intentionally created for people with dementia, engaging, calming, and easy to follow. Whether you need to ease agitation, create moments of joy, or make daily routines smoother, Zinnia is here to help. Family and professional caregivers use our content to turn challenges into opportunities for connection. Accessible by subscription on mobile devices and connected TVs, Zinnia is simple to use whenever you need it. Because when caregiving feels easier, life feels better. Go to zinniatv.com and sign up for a free trial today. Use the code RESOURCE for 15% off an annual Zinnia subscription.
Yeah, I think that probably one part of the impetus for everything to come together was my dad was finally diagnosed with dementia. And so, there's just this awareness that happens at the family level that, kind of drives your decision to go do other things with your life. The other piece of it, I would say that played a large impact was, I'm an engineer by background. I've spent the majority of my career at the intersection of healthcare and technology, so I'm always aware of things that are going on within healthcare, but then also very aware of things that are going on within the engineering technology world. And both my co-founder Babak and I saw this opportunity to look at some of the latest developments and things that were going on with artificial intelligence, and saw an opportunity to build tools that would be really helpful for people with cognitive impairments. And we got excited about it. We just thought it was a fantastic application for that technology. Just in that, I know that artificial intelligence, AI, it's like, the buzzword of the moment, and everyone's unsure of what's going to happen to the future of humanity. I don't know the answer to those questions. Please don't ask me that question. I do think, though, that as with any new technology, there are fantastic things you can do with it, and there are bad things that you can do with it. And I think that a fantastic thing that you can do with AI is use it as a tool that's overseen at this time by medical professionals, that is an easily accessible way to challenge the minds of and stimulate the minds of someone experiencing cognitive impairments, so that when we target the specific domains that are the most impaired for that individual, we can help promote building function alongside the neurodegeneration that's going on at the same time. So nothing about the treatment paradigm we're talking about is going to cure the disease, but we're at least trying to promote the opposite process at the same time. And so, I got into it for personal reasons, family reasons, but also just seeing, being aware of what was going on in the technology space and wanting to do something good with that technology. And just all of those things came together to be an opportune time to go work on NewDays.
So let's say I'm interested. How does the treatment program work? Can you explain what I would expect in that process?
Yeah. So you would schedule appointments with our clinicians. So those appointments are through telehealth. For the first 6 months, they're twice a month, and then they are once a month after that. And then in working with the clinician, you set goals about activities that you want to get back to in your day-to-day life, or things that are becoming functional problems for you, and what are skills and strategies, coping mechanisms for dealing with those things. And the clinicians help you understand those processes for kind of trying to achieve your goals. They also work through, kind of all of the symptoms associated with cognitive decline. They just help you understand those symptoms and how they're impacting your life, and how they're unique to your situation and unique to the cognitive impairments that you're experiencing. At the same time, Medicare does cover this type of treatment. It doesn't cover it enough to really see the benefits of working through cognitive interventions with our clinicians. And so that's where the technology piece comes in as well. You need to do similar, like I said about physical therapy, you need to do these exercises almost on a daily basis. So then in working through the clinic, the clinician will recommend certain exercises that may be the most beneficial or interesting for you. And then you would do those exercises on a daily basis. The exercises are based on technology, but they're purely conversations. So once you're into the system, you can pick, we have over 600 different exercises now, and they cover a wide range of topics. And they can be, I like to say that the conversations cover or go from like one end of the spectrum to the other. On one side of the spectrum is very casual conversations. So this is reminiscing about your family, your career, your favorite vacation, things along those lines. The other end of the spectrum is more challenging conversations that are designed to target a specific cognitive domain, to be a stimulus that your brain responds to. And it's really the clinician's job to find the right ratio of those things. So someone with MCI, they tend to really, our experience so far is they enjoy the more challenging conversations because it makes them feel like I'm doing something that's beneficial for my brain. Whereas someone with moderate dementia, maybe the more, casual conversations, reminiscing about past experiences is the best thing to go do. The thing we love about those or the reason that they're all conversations is that we want people to practice the skill that they need to maintain in order to continue to interact with real people in their everyday life. And I could say that, maybe from my dad's perspective, I could explain this, is that he has moderate dementia. He's starting to withdraw socially a little bit more. He doesn't seek out social interaction the way that he used to. And so, I think that social interaction, it's a skill. If you don't use it, you're going to lose it. And so we want you to continue to use that skill to the greatest extent possible. And I think it kind of speaks to, if you are, or three of the most common symptoms for someone with dementia is the cognitive decline itself. There's a loss of verbal fluency, so you have trouble finding the words that you want to use to express yourself. And then there is social withdrawal. And so if you were to build exercises that you wanted this person to do on a daily basis to help manage those symptoms, one, they'd ideally be as conversational as possible. Practice those skills, use them on a daily basis. In those conversations, you could practice verbal fluency. So find the particular words that you want to use to express yourself. And then some portion of those conversations can be focused on skills and strategies, coping mechanisms, reinforcing the concepts that you're working through in the clinic to help you remember them, to remind you about them so that you do see the benefits of those things in your everyday life. And so from the perspective of someone signing up, start with a clinical appointment, meet your clinician, set the goals about things that you want to achieve and do, and then work through exercises on an almost daily basis to help reinforce the concepts of what you're doing in the clinic.
So did you say make an appointment with a clinician or clinicians plural? And if so, what types of clinicians then do you have?
Yeah, you get one clinician and you work with the same person the entire time. And honestly, the clinician is the best part of the entire program. I think that with dementia, there's just a lot of uncertainty and fear about the changes that are going to happen to you. And having a medical professional that understands those changes and how they're going to impact your everyday life, and, being able to talk to somebody about that, I think is phenomenal. And that should be available to anybody that's experiencing cognitive impairments.
Oh, I totally agree. What I love about your program is it really is building that confidence. When you talk about the withdrawal, I know for my mom and so many other people with dementia say, I just don't feel confident. I don't want to mess up. I don't want to embarrass myself. I don't want to embarrass anyone I'm with. Some people don't know I have this. We haven't told them. We're not comfortable. I mean, there's just so many layers. And then like my mom was just a social butterfly. She was in charge of everything. And then all of a sudden it's like, come on, no, I'll just stay here. I'll just stay here. And it was like, wow, this is not my mom, who we knew. And then we realized it was because she wasn't comfortable.
Yeah. I think with dementia, Lori, I think there's a lot of social pressure going to interact with another person, and you're scared of making mistakes, you're scared of repeating yourself, you're scared of coming across as not the person that you think of yourself as. And
Mhm.
so having a safe space where you could practice those skills in order to have more confidence in them when you go into those interactions, I think is a good thing to do. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a great thing. And, I look at my mom who, I mean, she was poo-pooed for 10 years saying these aren't issues, it's just your hormones.
Yeah.
And then by the time she got diagnosed, literally, they didn't even meet with us back then. They sent us a letter and said, she's got the mentality of a 3-year-old, don't let her out of your sight.
Yeah.
How do we go from here to here? And no professional is picking up on this. But again, that was 40 years ago. Things
Yeah.
are really different, but it is still happening out there.
Yeah.
To so many. A lot of our primary care doctors are not skilled in diagnosing this and don't refer people out, or if they do, it's not to the right person so often.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this happened in your family, but a lot of times they're pushed towards a psychiatrist before they're pushed to a neurologist.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think, one of the things that excites me the most, Lori, about where we are with treating dementia is that I really think that some of the messaging around dementia is starting to change from, yeah, I remember growing up, we were always going to find the cure. Let's go find the cure. And now I think the messaging is becoming, this is a disease that you can manage and, detect it as early as possible, acknowledge that you're having some level of cognitive impairment, go get tested, go get diagnosed, because the earlier you do, the better your ability to manage the disease. And as we said, the early stages of dementia are not that bad. You can still live very long and happy life at those stages. And so if we do change the messaging to this is a disease that can be managed, I think that will only help with kind of acknowledging and some of the stigma that surrounds dementia. And then, yeah, I'm hopeful as well that this idea of like, hey, you need sort of this ongoing care paradigm if you've been diagnosed with dementia to help you with some of the symptoms of the disease to the greatest extent possible. And that's, some of the reasons behind NewDays, but there are other, or the guide program I would put in this regime as well of like, here's a care navigator, here's access to respite care, which is a way to, maintain social interaction, continue to change your mind, give the care partner a break. I think all of these things are moving in the right direction of helping to manage the disease and continuing to let people live their life to the greatest extent possible.
Yeah, I have to say this because I love Guide, but I also have an issue because everyone talks about respite. And when I interviewed people who signed up for it, the first thing they said is, oh, we can't wait to refer people to adult day. And, my response was, well, good luck with that. And they're like, well, what do you mean? And I'm like, so many of them went out of business and haven't come back, or those that have are shorter hours and they really don't help with that break.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I have an issue with, and I love when you're talking about this is a disease that can be managed, is we still have this attitude of, we need a break from one another. There's so much on the caregiver, and there is, and I'm not trying to minimize that, but don't think that's going to make your life perfect. And it's how do you live day to day so you don't get so burnt out.
Yeah.
So you don't feel so overwhelmed, because you know what, caregivers, you're not the only one struggling. The person with dementia is struggling just as much as you are.
Yeah.
And for ages, we have not focused on that at all. And so I love when you're talking about getting diagnosed early. Not only do they need it, they deserve this support.
Yeah.
And it's been missing for a long time. And I think when you say the word deserve versus need makes it more of a choice. Deserve makes it more of a benefit.
Yeah.
Where it's easier to walk into, I think. So I think the verbiage that we use is extremely, extremely important. I don't even like, and I use the word caregiver because that's what everybody says, but I like the words care partner or care companion because it says we're in this together, versus caregiver kind of sets up that burnout. And it goes along with our old beliefs that they can't give me anything back. And, there's still love, there's still connection We just have to look for it sometimes in different ways as the disease progresses.
Yeah.
But I found that never goes away, and sometimes becomes more profound as the personalities shrink,
Yeah.
because it means so much more at that stage, seeing the glint in the eye or the smile or the giggle or the touch or whatever it is. But, everyone is still fully human, and we need to look at it, I think, from that angle as well, because sometimes the title of the disease takes over. And this is what I hear from people with dementia is, you know what, I was like that before I had my dementia. Don't expect that to change, and Pat Summit's son was wonderful when his mom was going through her testing, and it came back, well, she's got dementia, and, look, and she has no math skills. And he's like, hey, my mom always sucked at math. This is not a new issue. She hated math. She would do anything to go around it. So, don't connect. Everybody's different, in terms of connecting their dots. And what I like from what I'm hearing from you is that, your service is very customized, and there's a saying in the field, and a lot of people who are new don't know this, but when you've seen one person with dementia, you've seen one. When you've seen one caregiver, you've seen one. Because everybody's circumstances, are changing, and they vary throughout the day. So as a care partner, I might be like this in the morning and not so much like that by evening,
Caring for someone with dementia is one of the toughest journeys, but you don't have to do it alone. I'm Allison Schreier, and my experience caring for my husband inspired me to create Zinnia, a therapeutic streaming service designed to support people living with dementia and reduce caregiver stress. Zinnia offers research-backed videos intentionally created for people with dementia, engaging, calming, and easy to follow. Whether you need to ease agitation, create moments of joy, or make daily routines smoother, Zinnia is here to help. Family and professional caregivers use our content to turn challenges into opportunities for connection. Accessible by subscription on mobile devices and connected TVs, Zinnia is simple to use whenever you need it. Because when caregiving feels easier, life feels better. Go to zinniatv.com and sign up for a free trial today. Use the code RESOURCE for 15% off an annual Zinnia subscription.
I might be at my wit's end in learning to measure those things and how we feed off each other's emotions. That's something that's not talked about a lot as well, or even the sensory triggers that cause escalation, which can be many times easily diverted or changed. But we're not talking about those things. We're not teaching people those. So that's one of my high points, that I really push, is that whole sensory piece, because it makes an environment feel safe or not. And that's a critical piece of social interaction and comfort and anxiety, all of those things.
I'd love to talk about, Lori, I'd love to hear your perspective on some of these things, because, as a company, we just published some results at a big Alzheimer's conference, ADPD, which was in Copenhagen a couple weeks ago. And we showed, phenomenal benefits to kind of global cognition as measured with a cognitive screener. But, as an engineer, I love looking at those differences in the measurements, but I also think that I love talking about some of the additional benefits we see, because I think that kind of pertains more to what is the day-to-day reality of the care partner and the patient, and where do they see benefits of working through something like NewDays. And there's a few of them. One is that we have, for the exercises where the patient sits and has this conversation, reflects back on their life or challenges themselves, we see patients do that for half an hour to an hour a day. And for some care partners, it becomes a little bit of like digital respite care, where they know that their loved one is doing something good for themselves. They're challenging their minds. They're stimulating their minds. At the same time, they don't have to be quite as attentive to them as they usually are when they're doing some other activity. And so, I think that there are benefits there. And it kind of speaks to what you're saying of, what is the routine that you find to continue to interact with each other and find that balance? And some part of me wonders if a program like NewDays can be part of that routine and part of that balance where, okay, now I know that my loved one is going to sit and have this conversation, and that will give me a chance to, do these other things around the house that I may not have time to do. And so I love that part of it. And then another piece of it that we see a bunch is that in the conversations themselves, I think because of what we were talking about before, there's so much social pressure interacting with another person. We have seen, but we're very forthcoming that when you're doing these conversations, it's practice for conversational skills, but it is a piece of technology. We also think that because it's a piece of technology, our hypothesis is it removed some of that social pressure. And we've seen people open up in ways, and all of a sudden their personality comes back to, what it was before. And it may be something to do with that social pressure. And it may be a safe space to practice those conversational skills without being concerned about potentially being judged by the person that you're interacting with or making a mistake. And so even in that dynamic, we see care partners get excited because all of a sudden this personality of the person they love so much, they see glimpses of it again. And, that kind of brings a smile to their face, or they get really floored. And then maybe the last piece of it as well that we see, or one more piece, is that, it's hard for someone with dementia to realize this, but sometimes when you explain it to them, it really has an impact that in sitting there and doing these conversations, it's a way to give back to the care partner. It's like, don't do it so much to help yourself. Do it because it's a chance for them to take a break. And all of a sudden, there's so few opportunities for someone with dementia to give back in the relationship and show that they're still there and they're aware of, some of the level of dependence that they've had to, grow upon their care partner. They've become more dependent upon their care partner. And it's just a great way to, potentially help them realize that they can get back and give this person a little bit of a break. Then, the last thing we see in that working through cog rehab with the clinicians is that many people, they start to go back. A common symptom of cognitive decline is withdrawing from the activities that you love so much. And so we had one patient that loved working with the Eagle Scouts, but had withdrawn from that activity upon MCI and dementia. And working through with the clinician, he decided to go back and work with the Eagle Scouts again, and is now leading hikes with the Eagle Scouts. And so is really glad to get back to those activities. Another person that we work with, another client, had withdrawn, used to play the game Go with his social circle, and he'd withdrawn from playing that game. And so working through cog rehab with the clinician helped him motivate him and set the kind of structure in place to get back to it. And so he had also gone back to playing Go with his social circle and had started teaching the game to some of the new people that were interested in playing with it. And so I think that all those things kind of speak to how do you find that day-to-day reality that helps you survive as the care partner and the person with dementia, that is some of the routine and structure that just helps you find your space, but also brings you together, helps you see the person's personality again, helps you see them get back to the things that they always loved doing. But it's also just kind of that balance that helps you live a happy life and, lets the patient get back, but manages some of the burnout of the care partner at the same time. And I think all of those things are incredibly important for, kind of finding a routine that's manageable and maintainable for the long run that helps the person kind of maximize their time at those early stages of the disease to the greatest extent possible.
Well, and what I hear from people who are diagnosed is they do worry about their care partners, and they know that they need a break, but they don't know how to be able to give them one where they're both going to feel safe in terms of doing that. And so I think that, again, that's a great point. And I think saying that out loud is important because on the other hand, the person with dementia, they want a break too. They don't like to be micromanaged, I mean, none of us really like to be micromanaged. And sometimes it's like Hawkeye on top of somebody. No, do it this way, do it that. No, that's your way of doing it.
Yeah.
This is my way of doing it. And, kind of even like if you're teaching a small child to make their bed, the corners might not be perfect, but you're just like, yes, they made their bed this morning. And we have to get to that attitude of celebrating what they still can do
Yeah.
and really focusing on what they're able to do. And even though people are coming in talking about maybe their issues they're having, the whole goal is to build those up, learn different ways to adapt, how to maybe do that same thing in a safe, comfortable way for them. And then when they kind of re-enter or continue on, typically it opens them up to talking about, I've been diagnosed.
Yeah.
And then that's a learning opportunity. That's a teaching opportunity. And because this is so massively out there and touching so many, and I won't say everybody, but I have found the majority of people are much more open to learning about it because they're still hearing the old stuff like, well, you can't have it. You're still driving. You can't have it. You should be in a wheelchair drooling, not talking to me. How can you have it? And it opens that variable to change the perception out there. And once we shift that perception, I think we shift kind of from a mindset to a heart set that allows us to connect much easier. And it takes the fear out of both sides because when one person's uncomfortable, the other person's going to sense that and feel uncomfortable too. What I've found out through my conversations, like through my dementia chats and stuff, is people say, dementia is kind of like, they relate it to being blind. If you're blind, your other senses step up to help you kind of read the room and figure out your balance. Yeah. And dementia does the same thing. When this isn't working, they heavily rely on all of their senses. And so many would say, well, look at me when you talk to me because I read lips. But they're reading more than just our lips. They're reading more than just words. They're reading our expressions in our face, our hands, all of that body language to put the picture together. And I think it's so common. It's just a common thing we all do. We take it for granted, but it's such a crucial piece of our communication and it becomes a necessary piece of our communication.
I totally agree. Yep.
Now you've kind of defined for us, and again, I love this, how you liken the exercise and kind of the whole approach to physical therapy. What kind of comments you had mentioned, like people are kind of re-entering their world, they're seeing the difference and stuff. From care partners aspect, I would imagine they're pretty thrilled at being able to see that and kind of feel that piece of normality come back. But have you guys ever done or considered doing, because sometimes I think this can be kind of a wall for people to get over. It's like, well, now I'm just doing this task. I'm going in and even if it's earlier on, doing reflections of my day or my life or whatever, noting those things. Have you ever considered allowing a care partner to do that as well? So they're matching. So it's not like you're doing this alone. Like we need our kids to know about these things, who the heck we were. There's a lot they don't know about us, to kind of take the scary edge off. And it allows that person to kind of set up and rethink their life, what they're doing and how they've done their life. But it could also be a portion to track a caregiver's struggles of what are their triggers as well.
We have not done it yet. Lori, I think it's a fantastic idea. We are constantly on the balance of trying to figure out what is the right amount to try and help the patient and their care partner. And because there's so many exciting things we could go do, but we don't want to overwhelm people at the same time. And part of the framework I tend to think of, the person with dementia and their care partner, many times I put them as they're just on the cusp of being overwhelmed. They're dealing with the cognitive impairment. They're trying to get their life in order. They're trying to understand how this is going to change their lives going into the future. I think some people handle it phenomenally and just kind of attack the problem. And they're like, this is just part of our life now. We're going to figure it out. I think it can be more overwhelming for others. And so we are constantly trying to find this balance of what's the right amount to try and support someone. And, here's a tool that can promote challenging your mind and conversational skills. And let's kind of build that as well as we possibly can. And then, as we continue to work with people, if they find the need for, care partners wanting to reflect as well and talk about their challenges and struggles, I think that would be fantastic. And just want to make sure that it is useful for them and not like another obligation. They feel like, oh, I have to do this. I have to do medication management. I have to do calendar management. I have to do financial management. And, now I also have to go talk to the system to reflect on my struggles as a care partner. If they find that valuable, I think we absolutely should build it. I think it's a phenomenal idea. Just want to tread carefully and make sure that we're adding value and helping people to the greatest extent possible.
That's a great point, because I know for myself, even with my mom, people are like, you should go to a support group. And my attitude was, I can't do one more thing for her. I'm sorry. Everything is, and I didn't see it for me at all. I just saw it for her. It's like, I'm married. I have a kid. I am working full time. I volunteer. I have extra people living in my house, not my parents. And I mean, it was just, you don't give up anything. And it was like, no, I can't do that. And then that's another layer of guilt. So that's really, I think, important, to measure out. And again, every person with dementia and every care partner is different. Yeah. And they have different needs at different.
Caring for someone with dementia is one of the toughest journeys, but you don't have to do it alone. I'm Allison Schreier, and my experience caring for my husband inspired me to create Zinnia, a therapeutic streaming service designed to support people living with dementia and reduce caregiver stress. Zinnia offers research-backed videos intentionally created for people with dementia, engaging, calming, and easy to follow. Whether you need to ease agitation, create moments of joy, or make daily routines smoother, Zinnia is here to help. Family and professional caregivers use our content to turn challenges into opportunities for connection. Accessible by subscription on mobile devices and connected TVs, Zinnia is simple to use whenever you need it. Because when caregiving feels easier, life feels better. Go to zinniatv.com and sign up for a free trial today. Use the code RESOURCE for 15% off an annual Zinnia subscription.
Times, for sure.
I think that's one of the most common reasons for not going to support groups is like, I just don't have the time. Like I'm trying to do this, I'm trying to do that. And they are fantastic, but yeah, it's for each person, they have to find their balance and, what are they capable of handling and what are they not capable of handling. And yeah, it's a process, I think.
Yeah. Well, and some people, sometimes you get in the wrong group, or you pick, the wrong product. I mean, there's all of those types of things too. And that can give you a mindset of, I tried that before, and that doesn't work because we think they're all alike, and they're not all alike. They're all different. So now is NewDays, is that, is it an app or is it a, computer, iPad? How does that all work?
Yeah, it's a website. So you can choose the device that you want to use.
Okay.
We did that with the intention of, it kind of depends on the individual, how comfortable they are with having a phone on them, or is it easier to just have like a computer in the corner of the room that they always use? And so it's flexible. They can use whatever device that works the best for them. And we are very sensitive to the fact that technology can be a burden or difficult for people with dementia. And so it's amazing the amount of technology we use to remove as much technology as possible. And so for the most part, once there's joining the telehealth appointments, which is becoming more common, and hopefully that's easier to do. It's just a Zoom call, which is fairly standard these days. And we always have people in the clinic that you can call for help, and lots of people to help out on that side of things. And then from the exercises perspective, once you've selected the exercise, it really is just a conversation. There's no buttons to push, no menus to navigate, no icons to click on or anything else like that. You just sit and talk. And so we see NewDays can be appropriate all the way to moderate dementia. It's usually the care partner that's starting the program at that point in time. But once it's started, from the patient's perspective, they can just sit and talk and they don't have to do anything else. And if they want to stop doing the exercise, they can say, I'd like to stop now, and it will end and go away. And so, yeah, it's pretty simple to interact with.
So on the back end, is it charting how they're doing in these activities? Is it creating a history of reflections? What's happening on the back end?
Yeah, we are very interested in kind of the longitudinal data of working with people, and it's almost, a scenario that hasn't existed before these frequent interactions over time. But much of what happens is you have these interactions, you work through the exercises, and then that information goes back to your clinician. And so then it really becomes a tool that the clinician is using to understand how you're doing. And to again go back to the physical therapy analogy, because I like it so much, the physical therapist has a bunch of tools that they may use. So you may see them in the clinic and then they say, I would like you to walk on the treadmill every day this week for 15 minutes. And if that treadmill was somehow connected to the internet and then it went back to the physical therapist, the physical therapist could say, oh, I see that you walked on the treadmill for 15 minutes a day at this pace and this, level of exertion. And that's fantastic. And I'm happy you did that. We think of these exercises are, kind of the tool of the cognitive therapist. They're the thing they're like the treadmill. They're the thing you can do on a daily basis that helps make the cognitive therapist better at their job, more efficient at their job, understand how you're doing. So much of the information of you interacting with these exercises goes back to your clinician. And it's a kind of summary of some of the interactions. So it's the amount of time that you spent interacting with it. It's the types of exercises, the types of things that you reflected on, but it's all useful information to them to see, are you stimulating, challenging your minds, practicing conversational skills on a daily basis, and they get that information back.
Okay. Well, that's neat, because I know sometimes with AI, it'll change like the questions that are asked based on the prior conversations and things like that. I didn't know if that was happening, or if there was a reservoir where the family could retrieve that information later.
We do. I mean, so the system will continue to learn things about you. So as you interact with it, it will kind of pick up on details about yourself. And we do that because we really think that your cognition it's your life experiences, it's your sense of humor, it's your hobbies, your interests, it's all the things that make you the person that you are. And so the more that we can personalize these exercises to you and your interests and the things that you really enjoy doing, then the more that you're going to focus on those, and the more of a cognitive challenge and a cognitive demand that they will be, and the more that you'll want to spend time with them and want to continue to come back to them. And so everything gets highly personalized to the individual, which is one benefit of this type of technology. We have ambitions for continuing to build exercises that will, I would love to go into this and upload memories of my dad and then have the system discuss those memories with my dad based on this is what Daniel told us about you, or photos from past events, things along those lines. And I've also heard my dad share stories that I never knew about him. And I would love to have those as a record of interaction of this was the person that he was and some of the things that he did. And I think those would be fantastic.
Okay. Well, in wrapping up, was there anything that you wanted to share kind of regarding the study that you did?
Yeah, we published our results from the first cohort of patients that worked through the NewDays program. And at the very beginning, we did some cognitive assessments. We also measured their cognition with a cognitive screener called the ACE-3 is the one that we use. It's similar to the MMSE or the MoCA. And so then we measure cognition again at certain intervals in order to understand how the patient is progressing and are they seeing benefits from the program, etc. And so we published those results for the first cohort of patients. And from them, we saw that 73% improved cognitive function, so help manage the symptoms of their cognitive decline. And then 50% of them saw better mental health, positive mental health outcomes, as well as measured by mental health questionnaire. And so, we think that it's just phenomenal results for, the first cohort of patients working through this. It's really taking an established care paradigm, but making it more accessible, using technology as part of it. And so there's still open questions of, are we going to see the same benefits as people do when they do this in person all the time with a medical professional? And so we thought those results were super promising. And we continue. That was the first cohort of patients. We've had many more patients continue to work with us. We continue to see very beneficial outcomes on cognitive measurements. Some of the patients have been with us for almost a year now, continue to interact with the program, continue to see benefit with us. And just fantastic results so far.
Do you break down at all? Because I know a lot of times people do the kind of the overall numbers, but do you break down the numbers to mild cognitive impairment, Alzheimer's, Lewy body, just to see if certain exercises see more improvement in certain types of dementias?
Yeah, we at least do classify the type of cognitive impairment at this time. So we have MCI and people with dementia. Mm-hmm. We do not, or we do track internally the etiology of the disease. But it's still kind of, in order to really see statistically strong correlations related to types of exercise or impact on the disease, we just need some very large cohorts of people to come through. And so, we continue to make progress there. But we do track MCI dementia. For this study that I just mentioned, the vast majority of those patients were people with dementia, and a smaller percentage were people with MCI, which in some ways was a little surprising for us, just because we think that some of the interventions, like what NewDays is most beneficial the earlier that you start the intervention in the cognitive impairment range. And so just the fact that we saw really beneficial results for people with mild to moderate dementia, we thought was super promising as well.
Oh, definitely. Absolutely. Well, this has been a wonderful conversation. I really appreciate your time today. I will give you one last time. If there's anything that we've forgotten to talk about that you want to let people know, we definitely need to get them your contact information. We don't want to forget that. And I believe your website is NewDays.ai, and you are on Instagram as NewDays, Facebook as NewDays AI, and LinkedIn as NewDays-AI, and we'll have all that information for people as well. Well, in wrapping up again, Daniel Kelly with NewDays, this has just been wonderful, the information that you've given us, and I hope people check this out. I can see so many benefits from this treatment and this interaction, and I think just being able to be in touch with a professional on a regular basis, that in itself is huge, because a lot of times they don't even feel like they know their doctor if they're only seeing them once a year. And to be getting this feedback and then being able to do something about it, being proactive, I think is good for both the person diagnosed as well as the family members. I always like to ask our audience to be a giver of hope. Like, click, and share. It doesn't cost you any money. It doesn't take any time. But you have people in your own sphere that are dealing with this that you might not even know, because there's still a lot of people that aren't comfortable about talking about this. And so the more we can push this information out, the more opportunities people have to think, oh, maybe this is more common than I thought. Maybe there really is something that can help me out there. So we would appreciate your assistance in that. And also, we always encourage people to check out Alzheimer Speaks for our free educational resources in all different types of platforms, and also visit Dementia Map. And Daniel, I don't think you're listed there yet, but we got to get your company in Dementia Map. We've got like 150 categories people can search, and there's different ways we can help you with branding as well. But it's easy for people to access. We don't ask anyone to make an account. We don't track people. I know it goes against the Google gods, but I want easy access for both Alzheimer Speaks and Dementia Map. And I'm just never going to do that to people. I'm not going to make them have to remember, another password there. So anyways, in closing, again, thank you so much, Daniel. Thank you for our audience. We love our community and we appreciate all of your support. Till next time. Bye now.
It's time to rethink, renew, and reimagine retirement. Hey everybody, Jared Sebesti here, host of Retire Repurposed. Now, this podcast is about the non-financial parts of retirement, which many times can be even more challenging than the financial. We believe retirement is not the end, rather the beginning of what could be the most impactful, purposeful, and fulfilling season of a person's life. So don't retire, become repurposed. To listen now, search Retire Repurposed on your favorite podcast platform, Senior Resource, or Life Audio.